These highlights from the Probate podcast will help you navigate life transitions like a pro. From senior living to estate planning to probate, you'll learn incredibly useful tips. Be sure to like and subscribe to hear more from Sherry Lund and her expert guests.
Can you talk a little bit about the difference between grief and loss?
Yes. Loss is anything that you have formed an attachment to that is you no longer have access to. Grief is your reaction to losing that thing, that attachment. It's an internal response. We often say that grief is invisible to the eye because it is all of the thoughts, the feelings, the physical manifestations, the social interactions. It could be behavioral and also spiritual. And the other thing that people often use synonymously with grief is mourning. And mourning is really the outward expression of grief. It's how we let other people know that we're grieving. So it might be all of the ceremonial or social or ritualistic things that we might do that show people that we are in grief. So it might be wearing black, it might be attending a funeral, it might be crying at a cemetery. Those are ways that we see that people are in mourning.
When you mentioned dementia a while ago, and I've had some experience with that too, and there is the loss and the grief before they even pass away. And so would your text be appropriate before? Like where would the text come into play in something like that?
So we do have a service called, our caregiver service, and it's for caregivers who are caregiving for somebody who has advanced illness or are terminal and aren't expected to live beyond 6 months or so. And our text at that point address what we call anticipatory grief, which is the grief that we experience when we know somebody is going to die or we're expecting a loss to occur. So the text will really address that and really give space for people to really reflect on some of the elements of grief that might be coming up for them. With anticipatory grief, we might grieve a series of little mini losses over time, right? We're not only grieving abilities and capabilities and personality shifts and declines, we're also grieving kind of future hopes and dreams and plans that aren't going to be able to come to fruition because of the time frame on this person's life. And in addition to the caregiver text, we're also educating them on how to increase their level of care for their loved one. So how can they deliver the best possible patient care available? And then we're educating them on common end of life things that you might be experiencing, but may not be educated in. Like, for example, how much should their loved one be eating or drinking in their final days and hours of life? And may really struggle with feeling that them not eating could be harmful for them. And we have texts that really speak to that using experts like Barbara Carnes, who is a guru in our hospice industry. And we're able to pull wisdom from research and then also from these just really deeply knowledgeable people to help create texts that really speak to very common experiences during end of life. The hope is will help add some relief or help inform decision making moving forward in terms of patient care.
And I'm sure when you are, because you're so intentional and careful in every other area, when you're telling the caregiver how to give better care to the person who is passing, you're also being careful how you do that to not put more load on the caregiver, right? Yeah, we love our caregivers.
Yes. I
They're
mean,
doing a big job.
we're just so aware, right? Like the burnout rate is just so incredibly high with caregivers.
Right.
And we're really helping them not only address their own burnout, because it's a very common theme. So how do you take care of yourself so that you can continue to take care of others?
Right.
But yeah, everything is written so gently, and we never write texts that start with you should or you need to or we advise this. It's really more suggestive in nature. Hey, this is what we know about this topic, and you might consider trying something like this. Perhaps think about this or reflect on this. It's really more of just delivering food for thought and wisdom for people.
And that is so empowering. When I had my practice, I worked with people who were caregivers. One lady in particular, her husband had ALS, and she came carrying his burden and trying to do all the things by herself. She wasn't open to getting much help outside of what she was doing for him. And her body was just taking a toll. And I remember talking with her about what are some things that you might enjoy. And that question was so difficult for her. She said, I don't even know what color I like anymore. Like she was not accustomed to thinking about herself. And she'd been so focused on taking care of him. And so the thought of eating better or drinking water, she wasn't there yet. And it took a long time to work with her on, it's okay for me to take care of myself. It's okay to not give all of my focus to him. And it's a hard one. So the gentleness and the suggestions that you guys have, I see that really empowers the caregiver also in that, and the survivor that is grieving, to help gently bring them back to where they need to be. What about, this is a heavy topic. So tell me what you love about your work. Tell me some of the things, some of the impact that you see your text. And what are you hearing from the people that get your service?
I get to see on a daily basis just hundreds of messages filter into our system from people who they've received a text and they instantly will text us back and just say, oh my gosh, this was exactly what I was going through today.
Uh-huh.
Thank you so much for kind of normalizing this for me. Or we might suggest a coping strategy for them to, I'm going to try this. Or maybe they'll text us even later and go, I want you to know that I did try this today. It was the perfect kind of moment for me to try this and it worked. And I'm just so grateful for that suggestion. Or somebody will say, you recommended a book to us and I bought it and I have been reading through it. And I just can't tell you how much like that recommendation has changed my perspective on grief. Or even a text came through not too long ago and it was just, to me, just so compelling. A woman whose spouse died said, I want you to know that the texts that I receive make me feel connected to a greater purpose.
Wow.
And I'm so lonely in my grief since my husband died. And I just want you to know that your texts make me feel less lonely and so much more connected, because I know that I'm not, if I'm getting this text, I know somebody else somewhere on this earth is getting this text too. And I just feel connected to them. Because grief is just like this deeply personal experience, it feels so isolating. And there's only so much that other people can do to support you in
Right.
that process. So much of the work that you do is the internal work that you'll do.
Yes.
So for somebody to feel connected and feel like she's less lonely is just so huge to me. What a lot of people don't understand is that there's a ton of risk that comes with being bereaved, not only acutely in grief, but long term if you don't feel supported in your grief. So, you're at more risk for mental health conditions like depression and anxiety and post-traumatic stress disorder and prolonged grief disorder. You're at more risk for heart conditions and obesity and chronic disease and illness. And some segments of the population, you're even more at risk for dying sooner than what you should. And so
Right.
to be able to intervene and provide coping strategies that can possibly break that level of risk down a little and mitigate it a bit is just, it's so powerful.
It really is powerful.
To catch the full episode and explore more resources from the Probate Podcast, check the links in the description. And be sure to subscribe for more tips each week.